Hello everyone and welcome to La Vida Fútbol. Today we're going to talk about the 3-4-1-2 formation. So we're going to look at the strengths and weaknesses both defensively and offensively. So the traditional way of playing with the 3-4-1-2 is you play with 3 center backs, and these are true center back players. The line of 4 is made up of 2 wing backs, here represented by the number 2 and the number 7. Then you have the 2 center defensive midfielders, the 6 and 8. A center attacking midfielder, number 10, and then you have the 2 forwards represented here by the number 11 and the number 9. We're going to discuss some of the characteristics. So I mentioned here that we have the 3 center backs, and these players are typically going to stay back, close together, defending together, shifting left to right together, and they will be essentially the defensive security so that the rest of the players can essentially push up. So that's going to be the main idea here. Next, we're going to take a look at the center defensive midfielders. So these players here are going to be essentially taking turns. We're going to have these players essentially alternate. So one will be going up and then the other will be going down, or it's going to be the other way around. One will be going down and the other one will be going up. Okay, so they're actually going to be taking turns as to who is going to support the back line of 3, essentially acting as a security blanket. These are going to be defensive minded players with, of course, the possibility of supporting the attack. Essentially because we have here only the number 10 who is by themselves in their own line. So at times you will see that this will happen, right? The number 10 will move to a side and then to allow space for one of the center defensive midfielders, right? And like I mentioned earlier, they will take turns. So then we'll have, in this case, the number 6 go up, number 8 stay back, and so on and so forth, right? So this is going to be something that will happen throughout the match, just to essentially allow the center defensive midfielders to either get a break or to both get the possibility of attack. You will have one, most likely, that is more offensive. Just generally speaking, there's going to be one player that will essentially be better than the other offensively, and one is probably going to be better than the other defensively. It is very possible that one, for example, let's say the number 8, who tends to be the one that supports the number 10 and the attack a little bit more than the other one, in this case the number 6. So that's kind of how this will look in the center. Of course, the center attacking midfielder here will be an attack minded player who at times will be going in between lines here and act as a third forward, and they will also be going on the sides to the wings to support the outsides. So here we can have, for example, a triangle formed with the wing back, the center attacking midfielder, and one of the forwards. They'll be staying up and moving wherever they need support or wherever an extra player is needed for the attack. So that's a player that is essential for this formation because they are their own line. So they need to be good at positioning. They have to be really technical, as they should be able to receive the ball in different locations by different players. So if they move here, then they're going to be an option for the center backs, and of course in the center they are an option to multiple players, including the center defensive midfielders and then the wing backs as well. And then being behind the forwards, there will be essentially a support system there as well. So this player should also be good at dribbling, passing, receiving, shooting. So like I said, it should be a very technical player. Okay, so next let's take a look at the wing backs here. So the wing backs in this traditional formation here are players that are going to be used to go up and down the pitch. They have a lot of field to cover, both in front and behind them. Because there isn't a left and right fullback, they will have to essentially get out of the attack to support the defense at times, and at the same time they will have to push up to be able to attack and create a threat on the wings, because without these players, going up could essentially lead to a numerical disadvantage. So for example, if this player stays back, then essentially the attack here will lack an extra attacker and may be a numerical disadvantage. It's important that these players are fit and can meet the demands of going up and down to defend. So those are the wing backs. The forwards in this formation traditionally will be either 2 number 9s, big players that are technical and are very good in the air, can finish with headers and aerial balls, but perhaps not the fastest. Or it can be a good balance of one strong big player and then one perhaps shorter and more slim and essentially just faster and better with the ball on their feet. That would be a more traditional way of playing with the 3-4-1-2. Another way of playing here is by having the left and right fullback playing in the center back position, or at least starting in the center back position. If we do that, this is a more dynamic way of using this formation, because this allows for a lot more fluidity, because at any given point you can have your left and right fullbacks spread out and have one of your defensive midfielders step back, and then have one center defensive midfielder essentially supporting in the midfield, right? So at any given point, you can find this formation attacking in a 2-4-4. This will essentially give you numerical superiority on the wings, or at least having that partnership on the wings that can essentially lead to a bigger threat when sending balls into the penalty area, or with, for example, having some overlaps or underlaps, or essentially just creating a triangle with one of the forwards, or having one of the midfielders step in and creating a double triangle, right? Triangle there and a triangle here. Okay, so this is a different way of using this formation. So then defensively, when players need to come back, the center defensive midfielder that is supporting as a center back will be the first one to be there. But once the left and right back come back, then the center defensive midfielder can step up and be back in their own line to essentially create just a balance defensively. How we defend in this formation is a lot more typical with what we would expect. We would typically see this formation defending in a 5-3-2, especially when it's in its own half. And defending in a 5-3-2 essentially gives you security in the center of the pitch. So we can see here we have most all players there covering the center block, but on the other hand, we only have one player covering the wing. That could be one disadvantage right there defensively. During a high press, you will have your center attacking midfielder push up, your two center defensive midfielders push up as well, the wing backs coming up, the center backs and the full backs coming up, and essentially the high press will be in a 3-4-3 formation. This distribution gives a good balance all around the pitch, especially on the opponent's half, because you have the center of the pitch covered, you have the outsides covered by one of the wing backs, which could easily be two players depending on where the attack is coming from. So for example, there we can have three players at any given point, and then essentially, of course, one of the center defensive midfielders can support there as well. So the intention of the high press is to essentially try to win the ball between the first and second lines of defense, and then the center backs are essentially there to support and to recover the balls. So what are some of the disadvantages of playing with the 3-4-1-2? Well, on its face, it's clear here that you only have one player on each wing, and that could be a big disadvantage, because if you don't have the players to play with your left and right fullback, then you will have to play with the more traditional way of having three center backs. If you have the three center backs, then this would essentially eliminate the option of having multiple players on the wings. It's important to have players that can meet the demands. So these fullbacks should also have qualities that can compensate in this position. So these players should be good aerially, right? So be able to win balls in the air, should be secure in slide tackling, and essentially be fit, right? Because these players will be supporting the outside wings and then going up and down the pitch also to help and support with the attack. So it's important to have the right players for this, and also having two center defensive midfielders that can essentially alternate with the attack or defensively, so stepping next to the center back, right? So that's important. You need to have the right players for this formation to be able to play in a more dynamic way, because the traditional way may be easier to attack again and to defend against, just because the maneuvers are a lot more typical. So this formation, it is very unique because you have four lines, right? You have the 10 being their own line. You need the right players for this formation. That could be a weakness. Defending in a 5-3-2, for example, here will allow for space on the outsides, which is not necessarily a bad thing, because if the ball is on one of the wings, then you would just have one of the center defensive midfielders support the wing and essentially pressure from the sides, and then you can also have the strikers pressuring from the side. But if there is a lot of pressure, then it might be necessary for the formation to become a 5-4-1 defensively, right? And when that happens, then it's going to be very easy to build past the first line of defense, but you will have the middle covered, you will have the wings covered properly, but on the downside you will only have one striker or one go-to player should the ball be recovered. Okay, so that can be a disadvantage there. Ultimately, this is a great formation, especially if you like formations with three in the back. I personally like this formation. I actually like it more than the 3-5-2, because 3-5-2 to me is defensive minded. This formation is more attack minded, especially if you have the players to meet the demands, right? So having the appropriate forwards, having a number 10, having left and right fullback that can play as fullbacks and also be able to play as center backs. So have two wingers that can meet the demands should the left and right fullback not be able to support. Having two center defensive midfielders who can essentially defend and attack, be box to box players who are aware, who are tactically savvy, who can essentially stop the play when necessary. So these are all things that are important for this formation. I hope you guys enjoyed this this video. This was a little different. I did this a little bit more live action and speak with you guys as I'm moving the characters. If you like this form and you would like a video like this in the future, comment that in the comment section below. If you would like the other way, where I have the notes written on the board and things that you can read, then comment that in the comment section as well, because I would like to know what you guys like, what you guys prefer. If you guys like both, then I can do both, but I figured that I would do this style just to see how you guys react to it. So thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Remember to subscribe if you haven't already. Turn on your notifications so that you get notified every time I come out with a new video. Thank you guys for your support. Like the video. I'll see you guys next time. Ciao.